Picture waking one ordinary morning, hurried, coffee in hand, ready to rush out the door, and finding a vehicle deliberately planted across your driveway. Not some random sedan, but the gleaming silver SUV belonging to the self-styled ruler of our tiny HOA realm. Her name was Karen, and she wore that title like it belonged to her. To Karen, every picket, lawn ornament, even the shade of a mailbox was up for her ruling. But that morning, when I saw her SUV stretched like a blockade across my driveway, I realized something had shifted. I stepped onto the porch, mug still warm, and watched. She hadn't marginally misparked. The vehicle sat diagonal, perfectly placed so backing out was impossible. At first I tried to be charitable. Maybe a mistake, a guest, maybe she simply hadn't seen. I quickly felt otherwise. This felt intentional, a display of dominance. Sure enough, Karen appeared from her house a minute later, huge sunglasses, clipboard tucked under her arm like official regalia. "No, sorry." She offered that smug grin and said, "Maybe now you'll start showing up to HOA meetings like everyone else." It hit me then. She wasn't merely blocking my car. She wanted to control me. See, I wasn't even part of their HOA. My lot sat just outside their borders, grandfathered long before the group formed. And that enraged Karen. She couldn't abide that I escaped their rules, couldn't make me trim the grass by their measurement or force my mailbox into their uniform style. For months she'd been needle-pointing at me with passive-aggressive notes, thin threats, and now she'd escalated to physically keeping me home. I called her bluff right there on the driveway. "Move your car, Karen, I have to leave." She tilted her head as if I were the unreasonable one. "Not until you join the HOA, everyone else pays. Why should you be free?" That tone line sparked everything. What she didn't realize was that by blocking my driveway, she'd initiated a chain that would cost her far more than a slab of concrete. She thought she'd taken the upper hand. She had no clue I was about to reverse the story in a way she would never recover from. Karen finally moved her SUV after I threatened to have it towed, but not without offering a final smirk. The sort that proclaims victory even when the facts say otherwise. He went to work, but the image replayed all day. By evening, she ratcheted it up. An official HOA notice was affixed to me front door. It was a joke. Not legal, just printer paper with a logo and a set of trivial infractions. Grass a hair too long. Garbage cans briefly visible, and my favorite, lacking community spirit. That night I started digging into Karen's history. If she treated our neighborhood like a chessboard, I needed to learn her pieces. The deeper I probed, the more fragile her so-called reign looked. Karen wasn't merely the HOA president. She was living beyond the means she could sustain. That shiny SUV, the remodeled kitchen, the pool that got a new tweak every year, all bankrolled. Public records showed a heavy mortgage and a trail of refinances, cash-out loans to fuel her queenly lifestyle. The clearer it became, the more precarious her position looked. Payments only barely up to date. One surprise bill, one missed installment, and the lender would step in. When I found that, things clicked. Blocking my driveway had been the last provocation. Learning about her monetary vulnerability handed me leverage. I wasn't seeking petty tit for tat. I wanted to dismantle the authority she assumed over me. The opportunity came sooner than I thought. A week later, her silver SUV sat in my driveway again, this time late, as if persistence might wear me down. Rather than lose my cool, I stayed composed and precise. It dawned on me that the SUV wasn't only a status symbol, it was collateral on a loan. If she'd weaponized her vehicle, maybe it was time to transform her debts into the instrument of her fall. My plan wasn't merely to scold Karen, it was toe strike where it would actually wound. Her pride centered on possessions, and I was prepared to take both away in one decisive move. The next morning, I stepped out, and there it was. Karen's silver SUV still sprawled across my driveway like it owned the pavement. This time I didn't ask. I dialed my phone. Not to the police and not to any tow company either. No. I contacted the bank that still legally owned her beloved SUV. The records had given me everything I needed. The vehicle was financed, and she was already behind on her payments. That shiny SUV wasn't truly hers. It was collateral, and the bank had full authority to reclaim it. When I explained the situation to their possession department, they were wary at first. But after I read them the VIN, clearly visible right through the windshield, their tone changed. "Sir, are you saying this vehicle is blocking your private driveway?" the representative asked. I couldn't stop the slow smile from forming. Yes, and the owner has repeatedly refused to move it. That was all they needed. They checked her account, confirmed the delinquency, and sent out a repo truck the same day. By late afternoon, I heard the low rumble of a tow truck approaching Thess Street. I leaned against the porch railing, coffee in hand again, as two men stepped out, hooked up her SUV, and began lifting it. That was the moment Karen came bursting out her front door, hair wild, robe fluttering, screaming as if they were kidnapping her only child. "That's my car. You can't take it," she howled. The repo driver didn't even blink. He simply handed her the paperwork and spoke calmly. "Ma'am, you're behind on payments. Until you're current, this vehicle is the bank's property." The expression that overtook her face was something I will never forget. The HOA's self-proclaimed monarch had her crown yanked off in broad daylight. She spun on me then, eyes blazing. "You did this, you called them." I didn't bother toting it. I took another sip of coffee and told her, "Now you know what it feels like when someone tries to take what isn't theirs." For the first time since I'd known Karen, she had no comeback. The tow truck rolled away with her precious Savi, leaving her barefoot in the driveway, stunned and silent. Neighbors peeked through blinds. Some even stepped onto porches to witness her downfall, but I wasn't done yet. Because losing her car was only the beginning, and I already knew her mortgage situation was far worse. For a couple of weeks after the repo, Karen kept quiet. She walked to her HO meetings now, no flashy entrance, no chrome gleaming in the sun. The swagger faded, though only for a while. Soon enough, she resumed her old habits, sliding bogus notices into my mailbox, accusing me of imaginary weeds, insisting again that I do my duty and join the HOA. It would have been funny if it wasn't so predictable. She had lost her vehicle, yet she still clung to the illusion of authority. That was when I knew it was time to end this permanently. The mortgage research had revealed the truth. Karen wasn't only behind on her car loan. She was months overdue on her house payments as well. Public notices were already stacking up. All the situation needed was a nudge. So I reached out to her mortgage lender posing as a concerned neighbor. I shared everything I had gathered, her habit of overspending, her harassment of nearby residents, and even her suspicious use of HOA funds to upgrade only her own home under the guise of community improvement. Whether the bank believed every detail didn't matter. It raised questions. And when I provided copies of her home equity credit line she clearly couldn't afford to repay, it pushed things over the edge. Within weeks, foreclosure procedures were underway. Karen panicked, tried to gather her HOA followers to rescue her, but the very neighbors she had bullied for years had no interest in saving her. They simply watched while the ruler they once tolerated began to fall apart. The final blow arrived on a Saturday morning. A moving truck pulled into her driveway, not to deliver furniture, but to remove it. Karen stood outside, shouting instructions at the movers, clinging desperately to the last strands of her dignity. But everyone on the street knew the truth. The bank had taken her house just like it had taken her SUV. I stood on my porch, coffee in hand once more, watching the final pieces of her throne disappear. Karen looked at me one last time. No designer shades, no clipboard, no arrogant smirk. Only defeat. She had tried to control me by blocking my driveway. And in the end, I took the two things she valued most, her car and her house. The same possessions she used to feel superior were gone. True poetic justice, delivered one overdue payment at a time. If you enjoyed this story and want more outlandish HOA and Karen tales, remember to subscribe, tap that like button for some satisfying revenge, and tell me in the comments what you would have done in my situation. Your support helps me bring you many more unbelievable stories just like this.